guys, so what we're going to tie today, as I nearly murder the camera here, is a little frog fly. It's not really little, it's kind of a larger fly, but that's what we're going to tie. It's on a 5/0 Gamakatsu hook, just a regular worm hook, and you're going to use regular 210 thread. Before you start your thread, this is a leg puller. You're going to want to poke a hole through this and kind of make a bigger hole so you can slide this on and use it as a measurement. And instead of leaving it right here and then you got to fight to get the eye or the line through the eye because of the way the popper is, I push it back to where I can see the eye from the top side, so when I actually go fish this, I don't have to fight it as bad. And start your thread right at the back of this, and that'll be your measurement to not put anything forward. So there's that. Run your thread to the back. Trim off your tag end. I like to take some heavy mono. This is 100 pound. This will help support the legs. Cut it like an inch long, 2-inch piece, and then just set that to the side. Take some 40 pound regular mono. This is just some green. Put it on my side first. Let's get a couple wraps going. Put it on you guys' side. So now I have it on each side of the hook. Work this back and down and around the bend just a little bit. Make sure to keep each piece of mono on each side of the hook. That'll help out later in the fishing part of the fly. It'll actually be a functional weed guard. It won't just be a cool looking weed guard. So lock that down real nice and tight. And you're going to come in with your piece of 80, put a hard bend in this, make a nice U. Leave this hang out maybe 1/8 of an inch or so out of the back of the hook. And tie this in right on top. So for this next step, I went ahead and sped us up a little bit, but you're going to want some permanent markers and some Pat Cohen large rubber legs, or large frog legs. And you just marker it all up. So when I did mine, this is how I made it look. I just fade it. Just made it look faded. Well, you're going to set this in to where that piece of mono that you tied in right here is supporting those legs on each side. So they don't want to foul as bad, and they want to stick out and actually be functional. A couple loose wraps just to make sure everything's where it needs to be. So everything's nice and even. Lock that down real good. Then I take, this is adding some flotation, but it's also adding a little bit of movement. This is a Primo deer hair strip. I do 3 steps with this. And you're just going to do like half a step first, just so you can cover up that piece of mono. I'm going to pull out, a generous little maybe a 1 pencil thickness. Knock out all your loose fibers. Then I take a hair stacker, tips down first, knock it down, even all your tips up, looks like so. And just push them out a little bit, pinch them off. I like to invert the fly for this first step. And I'm only really going back as far as that mono with the tips. Pinch it down and do a loose wrap, a little tighter wrap, pull it down tight, and then a locking wrap. Now you're going to come in and take all the butt sections off. This will just give you just the hair tips, and it'll give you a real full look and kind of hide your tie-in point. So there's that. That's also going to help everything not foul. Do the same thing on the top. Do this over the trash can as much as I can. Another little pinch. Back in the hair stacker. Pull it out. That way your tips are aligned. Same thing as the first step. You're gonna hide the piece of mono again. Loose wrap, a little tighter wrap, and go ahead and pull it down tight and lock it in place. Cut off all the butt sections. So now the butt sections are cut off. You're going to jump your thread forward just a little bit. This time you're going to get about 1.5 pencils thickness. So good clump of hair. Still have to pull all the under hair and the shorter hairs out. Because we're not stacking this, I'm not going to use a brush to pull them out. You can just go real nice and loose with it. So they're all even again. Pull it out. Take these tips and kind of line up with the original tips that you did, like so. Set it right on top. Do 3 loose wraps. So this is just going to help hold the hair in place. Let your bobbin hang, and forcefully rotate this around the shank of the hook. Try to evenly distribute the hair around the shank. Once you think you have it, it looks alright to me. Go ahead and undo 1 wrap, pull down tight, and lock it back in. 2 locking wraps. I hold on to it for as much as I can and trim off the butt sections again. It just helps me not trim off the tips. So we're going to do that step one more time, and that's going to be the last step for the hair. Move your thread forward just a little bit. And you should be right at where that popper head was originally at. Go ahead and trim off another good section of hair. Knock out all the underfur, all the short hairs. If you don't take the underfur or the short hairs out, what'll happen is your thread will get caught on them, and it'll break your thread eventually, or the hair will look fuzzy on the hook. Knock that down, even up the tips, and repeat the last step. So we're just going to match up our tips again, like so. 3 wraps. Evenly distribute it. Looks alright. Undo one. One locking turn, pull it down, flare it. 2 locking turns. Trim this off. So make sure to trim this one a little closer than the last ones you did, only because that popper head's going to need to go over it. So now that it's totally trimmed, I'll go ahead and wrap through it a couple times and make a nice thread wrap to the to about where you think the popper head's actually going to be. I don't go quite to the eye because there is some exposed shank there the way I tie them in. You can go to the eye if you want. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But go ahead and make a solid thread wrap here. You almost have to build up the shank again because you did make the popper head a little bigger hole than necessary. But you need something to glue to. So that looks good to me. I'll do a couple half inches just to get my thread out of the way. You don't have to do a whip finish here because you're going to be adding super glue and you're going to be sliding the popper head over it. Then I'll take Zap-A-Gap, put a little drop here. I want a slower curing glue when I do this, rather than using Loctite gel. I want to be able to work with it. I want to push this back into those hairs, kind of hold it there. I'm going to take this out of the vise so you guys can see it real quick. But I went over the butt section so you can't see the butt sections anymore. So now that's out of the way, I'll go ahead and pull my weed guards together and down. Make sure they stay on the right side of the hook. Together and down. Put the fly back in the vise. It should be curing. It's pretty close to it. Go ahead and restart your thread right at the eye of the hook. Try to use as little of thread as possible at this point. So I kind of weave it and go back and forth. Now you're going to bring this one up to the right side. I do 3 wraps. Bring this one up to the left side. 3 wraps. Now hold them apart. Figure 8 them a few times. Now, there's no real tension on any of this. You can still move it, as you guys can see. I'll take my scissors, put on the bottom side of the hook, pull this up. That way they stay nice and even. And then I'll take my scissors and come in, trim them off square. I'll just make a little thread bump there. Take your time doing so, make it look nice and neat. Make sure your mono stays on each side. And go ahead and whip finish or do a few half hitches. So I did 3. So to really lock everything in and hold it where it's supposed to go, I'm going to come in with loon thin. And go right in the middle of these weed guards. Make a little bump of UV epoxy to keep them separated. That's kicked off. That'll keep them separated. Now I'm going to come in with loon flow. I'm going to hit all these threads that are exposed. Really coat that pretty good. Light it up. Kick it off. So I didn't tell you guys how I did the eyes, but I just regular super glued in my eyes real quick. And the last thing to help them stay in is I take the loon flow and go right around just the rim of it. All the way around, kind of fill that void. Kick it off. And kick it off on the side. So give it a few days, and this is going to be live, or it's going to be edited and put on our YouTube page. And I strongly suggest you guys go over to the YouTube page and subscribe. That way, you guys, if you missed a step or didn't catch the whole thing, you can go back and look at it. But there's the overall fly. If you want to get fancy with it, we're going to come in and add some rubber legs, one last step. But I do that off the vise, so I'm going to get this out of the way. So that leg puller that I was telling you about, this is a Zugby leg puller. You can get that at your fly shops. I go in about even with the bottom side of the eye and just kind of push and rotate this in. It takes a little getting used to, not poking yourself. It's part of why I do it off the vise, so I can feel where it's coming out and make sure it's coming out even. And just take your time doing it. So get that all the way through. Stick the rubber leg in, maybe a half an inch or so. Let me pull that back through. Stick the rubber leg in like a half inch or so. Pull it through. Now you have one big rubber leg. Tie a knot in this. Get it down tight. It's going to help it not fall out, for one. 2, it's also going to help it look a little more like a front leg. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the excess here. Go ahead and tie in the other one. It's just an overhand knot, nothing fancy. Even them up. Try to get them as even as you can. Cut it off, and then pull this and get it even. So there's your little rubber legs on your frog. Frog legs. There you guys go. Again, if you want to fancy it up, you can put permanent marker all over the popper head and color it whatever colors you want. I would just use permanent markers. Go over to the YouTube page, subscribe, and let us know what you want to see next week.